Okay, so get ready to rethink everything you thought you knew about exercise. You sent over this fascinating YouTube interview, The Diary of a CEO, featuring a Harvard evolutionary biologist, Daniel Lieberman. Let's unpack his take on how our modern lives are a total mismatch for our ancient bodies.
Yeah, what's striking is how Lieberman uses indigenous populations, like the Tarahumara people in Mexico, to illustrate his points. They don't have a concept of training. They run for survival, not for fun.
It's mind-blowing, right? They cover like 10 to 18,000 steps a day, just
Yeah.
like going about their lives,
Yeah.
no Fitbits necessary. It makes our modern obsession with hitting that arbitrary 10,000 step goal seem a bit, well, manufactured.
Yeah, and it really highlights how we've engineered movement out of necessity. Our ancestors had to move to eat to survive. We, on the other hand, we have cars, elevators, food delivery. Our bodies are still wired to conserve energy, so it's no wonder so many of us struggle to find the motivation to exercise.
It's like we're like fighting our own biology. No wonder that gym membership card is gathering dust. But Lieberman dives even deeper into those nagging exercise myths we've all heard. Like, how much sleep did our hunter-gatherer ancestors actually get? I'm picturing a solid 9 hours after a hard day of, hunting and gathering.
Think less, not more. They average 6 to 7 hours, and research shows that consistently getting 7 hours is actually ideal for most adults. That whole 8-hour rule is more like a guideline than a hard and fast rule.
Okay, so I can cross that off my worry list. But what about all the doom and gloom about sitting being the new smoking? I practically live at my desk some days.
Lieberman says it's less about, how much EH we sit and more about how W we sit. Interrupting those long bouts of sitting is key. Even standing up during a phone call or taking a quick lap around the office can make a difference.
So those little breaks actually do add up. I'll admit I've been guilty of thinking if I don't have time for a full workout, why bother? But this is encouraging.
It all goes back to those hunter-gatherers. Their movement throughout the day wasn't regimented exercise, it was just woven into their lives. We can apply that same principle to our modern lives, even if we're not, chasing down antelope for dinner.
And speaking of those long-lived ancestors, Lieberman's thoughts on aging and the use it or lose it principle really got to me. It's like we've just accepted that decline is inevitable, but he suggests that we're actually wired for an active later life.
He even challenges the idea of retirement as we know it. Humans are unique in that we evolved to live long past our reproductive years. Think about the role of grandparents, active caretakers, passing on wisdom and skills. Our bodies seem built for it. But have we created a system where, after a certain age, we're almost expected to become less active?
He calls it an evolutionary mismatch, right? Our modern lifestyle doesn't match up with our biological programming. And there's actual research to support this, right?
Absolutely. Studies show that the positive impact of exercise on longevity actually increases as we age. Maintaining muscle mass, which we naturally start to lose as we get older, becomes even more critical to prevent falls, maintain independence, and just generally thrive.
So that whole "I'm too old to start exercising" excuse just flew out the window. It seems like our later years are when movement matters even more.
Yeah, it's like our bodies are saying, okay, we've raised the kids, now it's time to really put this longevity to good use, but we're stuck in this cycle of slowing down, which actually works against us.
Which leads to that other point that really struck me. His perspective on diseases like cancer, heart disease, even Alzheimer's. We tend to think of them as an inevitable part of getting older, but he throws a real curveball by suggesting our lifestyle plays a huge role.
It's a powerful shift in perspective. He points out that Western lifestyles, with their lack of regular movement and reliance on processed foods, are strongly linked to higher rates of these diseases. It's like we're setting ourselves up for these health challenges without even realizing it.
And he's not just talking the talk. He criticizes the lack of investment in preventative health care. It seems counterintuitive, right? We spend so much time and money treating these diseases, but what if we focus more on preventing them in the first place?
It's about addressing the root cause, not just the symptoms. Imagine if we invested as much in promoting healthy habits and environments as we do in developing new drugs and treatments.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? And it makes you think, okay, what small changes can I make today to shift towards prevention?
Exactly. And speaking of changes, let's talk about the sugar exercise connection, because Lieberman presents a really, really fascinating perspective on that. He describes this almost epic battle happening within our bodies.
Okay, I'm all ears. Paint me a picture. What's going on in there?
Imagine sugar as this insidious fuel, feeding inflammation and even potentially contributing to the growth of cancer cells.
Hmm.
Now picture exercise as the superhero swooping in to save the day.
I love a good superhero analogy. So how does exercise fight back against the sugar onslaught?
Exercise lowers our insulin levels, which can be problematic in excess, but it also triggers our muscles to produce a substance called interleukin 6, or IL-6 for short. Don't let the scientific name scare you. It's actually a good guy in this scenario.
Okay, so IL-6 is our muscle's secret weapon.
In a way, yes. At higher levels, which exercise helps promote, IL-6 actually acts as a powerful anti-inflammatory, counteracting the negative effects of all that sugar.
So it's like exercise is giving our bodies the tools they need to fight back against those sugary invaders. It's not just about deprivation, but about actively creating a more balanced internal environment.
Precisely. And it explains why people with physically active lifestyles might handle more sugar without experiencing the same negative consequences. They're constantly counteracting those effects. But, and this is crucial, that doesn't give us a free pass to indulge in donuts just because we hit the gym a few times a week.
Definitely not. It's all about that balance,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We can't outrun a bad diet. Speaking of which, let's dive into Lieberman's idea of redesigning our world to encourage more movement because we can't rely solely on willpower here.
So we're talking about creating an environment where the healthy choice is the easy choice.
Exactly. Think about it. What if we taxed unhealthy foods instead of banning them, using those funds to make healthy options more accessible and appealing?
So instead of forbidding those sugary drinks, make the fruits and veggies so enticing that they practically jump into your shopping cart.
Exactly. Or what if we designed our cities with more green spaces, walking paths, and bike lanes? What if we promoted physical activity with the same enthusiasm that we currently use to advertise fast food and sugary drinks? These are the nudges Lieberman talks about, subtly shifting the environment to make the healthy choice the easy choice.
I love that. It's not about forcing people to change, but about empowering them to make healthier choices by making those choices more accessible and appealing. But what about on a more individual level? He talks about the importance of finding your why when it comes to exercise, right? It can't just be about fitting into those skinny jeans.
He's all about finding activities that bring you joy, activities that make you feel strong and capable. And often that means thinking beyond the traditional gym setting.
He's a big advocate for the social aspect of exercise, isn't he? Like running with friends or finding an activity that feels more like a social gathering than a workout.
He actually uses this great analogy in the interview. He talks about how running in Central Park gives him this surge of dopamine, that feel-good neurotransmitter. But here's the catch. He points out that this response isn't always immediate, especially for those of us who aren't used to regular exercise.
So it's not like you automatically feel amazing after one workout.
Right. And that's where a lot of people get discouraged. We live in a world of instant gratification. We want to see results immediately. But the truth is, those feel-good endorphins, that sense of accomplishment, they often take time to develop.
So it's about trusting the process,
Mm.
believing that those positive feelings will come.
Exactly. And when they do, that's when the magic happens. You start craving that feeling, that sense of empowerment. It becomes less about forcing yourself to exercise and more about wanting to move your body because it feels good.
It's like you're training your brain to love exercise.
Precisely. And the best part is, it doesn't matter where you're starting from. Whether you're a seasoned athlete or just starting out, it's never too late to discover the joy of movement. But he did mention that it took him years to find that motivation. And I get it. How do you go from thinking about exercise as a chore to something you actually crave?
It's like you have to rewire your brain, right?
Right.
But how do you do that?
It's about reframing your relationship with exercise, shifting from a mindset of punishment to one of empowerment. Remember those Tarahumara runners? They don't see running as a chore. They see it as a celebration of what their bodies can do. It's woven into their culture, their spirituality.
It's like they've tapped into the joy of movement. And that's something we've kind of lost sight of in our modern world. We've made it so clinical, so goal-oriented.
Exactly. We've medicalized it, commercialized it, turned it into something we have to do rather than something we get to do. But Lieberman believes we can reclaim that joy. It starts with finding our own personal why.
I love that. It's not about fitting into someone else's definition of fitness. It's about, discovering what moves you literally and figuratively. And sometimes it takes trying a bunch of things you don't enjoy to figure that out. Speaking of which, I have a confession to make. I went down a rabbit hole of minimalist running shoes after this interview. Those Vivo Barefoots he was sporting, I had to try them.
He's a huge proponent of minimalist footwear, and for good reason. Remember how he talked about mismatched diseases, conditions that pop up because our modern lifestyles clash with our evolutionary history? He uses plantar fasciitis, that a cochlear foot condition, as a prime example.
Wait, so you're saying my comfy, supportive shoes could be the culprit behind my foot pain? That's ironic.
It's not that the shoes themselves are inherently bad, but they can contribute to a lack of natural movement.
Hmm.
Think about it. Our feet have dozens of muscles and tendons designed to work together to provide support and absorb impact. But when we, encase our feet in super cushioned, overly supportive shoes, those muscles don't have to work as hard.
So my feet are getting lazy because my shoes are doing all the work. Got it.
Exactly. It's like putting your feet on a permanent vacation, and just like any other muscle in your body, if you don't use it, you lose it. Those muscles weaken, and then, we're more susceptible to injuries like plantar fasciitis.
So what's the solution? Toss out all my shoes and embrace the barefoot life. I admire Lieberman's dedication, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to go full-on caveman just yet.
He emphasizes transitioning gradually. Start by incorporating short periods of barefoot walking at home. You can even try some foot strengthening exercises. The goal is to, wake up those muscles and give your feet the workout they were designed for. And then, if you're interested, you can gradually explore more minimalist footwear options. It's not an all or nothing proposition.
It's about listening to your body and finding what feels right, right? So barefoot sometimes, supportive shoes other times. Got it. But let's talk about those minimalist shoes for a second, because I have to admit, when I saw them, I was like, those are shoes. They look like something you'd wear in a superhero movie.
They do take some getting used to, and they're not for everyone. The key takeaway is that it's not about the shoes themselves. It's about incorporating more natural movement patterns into our lives.
Which brings us back to the whole variety thing. I've been experimenting with different types of exercise lately, from high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, to CrossFit. And honestly, I've discovered that I'm not a marathon runner.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy the variety. It keeps things interesting and challenges my body in different ways.
Lieberman is all about that variety. Our bodies thrive on it. Just like we wouldn't eat the same meal every day, we shouldn't do the same workout every day either. He's a huge proponent of mixing things up, incorporating cardio, strength training, flexibility, you name it, to create a well-rounded routine.
So no more feeling guilty about skipping the treadmill for a dance class. That's good to know. I've been having way more fun since I kind of let go of this idea of having the perfect workout routine and started just moving my body in ways that feel good.
And don't forget the social aspect. You mentioned that workout group you're a part of. That camaraderie and accountability can be a game changer.
Absolutely. It's funny how something as simple as a text message from a friend can be the motivation I need to, lace up my sneakers, even when it's the last thing I feel like doing. But Lieberman had a really interesting take on the whole best exercise debate. He doesn't believe there's a one-size-fits-all answer.
Rightfully so. He emphasizes that our bodies are incredibly adaptable. What works for one person might not work for another, and what works for you today might not work for you a year from now. It's all about finding what feels right for you, for your body, for your lifestyle.
Which is so freeing. It takes the pressure off having to find that one magical workout. It's more about exploring, experimenting, and discovering what you enjoy. And let's be honest, sometimes the best workout is the one you'll actually do.
Right. Absolutely. And remember, any movement is better than none. Don't underestimate the power of those small, everyday actions. Take the stairs, park farther away from the store, dance around your living room. It all adds up. But speaking of what works, I do want to circle back to the social aspect of things, because Lieberman really emphasizes that for a reason. It's not just about having someone to hold you accountable, although that's definitely a benefit. It goes deeper than that.
Well, and it worked for our ancestors, right? They hunted and gathered in groups. It was a communal activity essential for survival.
Exactly. And when we tap into that primal instinct, that need for connection and community, it can make all the difference. It's not just about the physical benefits of exercise. It's about the mental and emotional benefits as well.
It's like that saying, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Right.
But in this case, it's more like a workout shared is a workout enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm way more likely to push myself and have fun when I'm working out with friends.
Exactly. And it makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. We're social creatures, wired for connection and belonging. When we exercise with others, we're tapping into that innate need for social interaction. It's no longer a chore. It's an opportunity to connect, to support each other, to celebrate our collective strength.
It's funny, we often focus on the physical changes we want to see from exercise.
Yeah.
Weight loss, muscle gain, all that jazz.
Yeah.
But he really highlights the mental and emotional transformation as well.
He talks about how exercise can help reduce stress, improve mood, boost confidence. It's like a natural antidepressant.
Hmm.
And when you combine those mental and emotional benefits with the physical benefits, it's a recipe for a truly holistic sense of well-being.
It's not just about looking good, it's about feeling good.
Yeah.
About feeling strong, capable, and connected.
Precisely. And it's about embracing the journey, not just the destination.
You know, it's funny, he made a comment about the aesthetics of muscle that kind of got me thinking. He seemed almost amused by our modern-day obsession with, getting absolutely ripped. He wasn't convinced that bigger is always better.
He brings up a fascinating point about the evolutionary purpose of muscle. It's not about looking good in a swimsuit. It's about function. It's about having the strength and endurance to thrive in your environment. And for our hunter-gatherer ancestors, having more muscle than you needed could actually be a disadvantage.
Because muscle requires energy to maintain, right? If you're not using it, you're essentially wasting precious resources.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot. Having enough muscle to be functional and healthy, but not so much that it becomes a burden.
Which is such a refreshing perspective. It takes the pressure off striving for some idealized physique and allows us to focus on what really matters, feeling good in our own skin.
It's about appreciating our bodies for what they can do, not just for how they look.
Okay, but let's talk about another aspect of exercise that often causes a lot of confusion. Weight loss. We've all heard it. Exercise is essential for weight loss. But then there's that other saying, you can't outrun a bad diet. So which one is it?
It's definitely a bit of both, and unfortunately there's a lot of misinformation out there. Lieberman acknowledges the debate, but he emphasizes that a lot of the confusion stems from, how we study exercise and weight loss.
Really?
Many studies focus on, relatively small amounts of exercise. Think 150 minutes of moderate activity per week, which is the standard recommendation from most health organizations. And while that amount of exercise is great for overall health, it's often not enough to lead to significant weight loss on its own.
That makes sense. You can't expect to undo a week's worth of pizza and ice cream with a few 30-minute walks, right?
Exactly. And that's where some of the frustration comes in. People hear that exercise is important for weight loss. They start incorporating those recommended 150 minutes, and then they're disappointed when they don't see a huge difference on the scale.
Because they're not necessarily changing other lifestyle factors like their diet.
Precisely. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with only half the pieces. Lieberman points out that higher doses of exercise, especially when combined with dietary changes, can certainly contribute to weight loss.
But it's not just about the number on the scale, right? He talked about a study on policemen in Boston that I found super interesting. It wasn't just about losing weight, but about keeping it off long term.
Right. That study highlighted the importance of exercise for weight maintenance. The policemen who continued to exercise after losing weight were more successful at keeping it off, even if their eating habits weren't perfect.
It all circles back to that use it or lose it principle.
Exactly. It's about finding, sustainable habits, both in terms of diet and exercise, that you can maintain over time. There's no quick fix, no magic pill. It's about making, gradual, sustainable changes that become part of your lifestyle.
Speaking of sustainable habits, one thing I've personally struggled with is motivation. There are times when I'm like super gung-ho, hitting the gym 5 days a week. And then there are times when it takes all my willpower to drag myself out for a walk around the block. It's frustrating.
You're definitely not alone in that. It's a common experience. Remember what Lieberman said about the dopamine response to exercise?
Oh yeah, that feeling of exhilaration, the runner's high, all those feel-good chemicals flooding your brain.
It's those feel-good chemicals that keep us coming back for more. But he made a really crucial point. That response isn't always immediate, especially for those of us who are, new to exercise or who've taken a break for a while.
It's like our brains need time to catch up to what our bodies are doing.
Exactly. We live in a world of instant gratification, instant access to information, entertainment, you name it. But with exercise, especially when you're first starting out, you have to put in the work up front. You have to trust that those rewards, those feel-good endorphins, that sense of accomplishment will come.
It's like you have to train your brain to crave that feeling, and that takes time, consistency, and a willingness to push through those initial hurdles when it feels more like work than enjoyment.
Yeah.
But he did admit that even he, a Harvard evolutionary biologist who studies this stuff for a living, has days when he'd rather take the elevator than the stairs.
He's human, just like the rest of us.
Huh.
I think that's so important to remember, especially when we're bombarded with images of, seemingly perfect people with seemingly effortless workout routines. It's not always easy, even for the experts. But that's where those strategies we've been discussing come into play. Finding your why, creating a supportive environment, tapping into the power of community.
It's about setting ourselves up for success, however that looks for each of us.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes that means getting a little creative with accountability,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Remember that story about his friend who used a commitment contract to motivate himself to exercise?
Oh, right. The one with the National Rifle Association. That was hilarious.
It just goes to show that sometimes we need a little extra push, a little outside support to stay on track, whether it's a workout buddy, a fitness tracker, a public declaration on social media, or even a slightly unorthodox financial incentive. The key is finding what works for you.
What works for one person might seem completely crazy to someone else.
Right.
But that's the beauty of it. There's no judgment, just experimentation and finding what sticks. And that's what I love about Lieberman's approach. It's not about, shaming people into exercising. It's about empowering them to find what works for them, even if it means getting a little creative with those accountability methods.
It's about shifting our mindset from, I have to I want to. And that starts with ditching the all or nothing mentality.
Because let's be real, life happens. There are going to be days when we miss a workout or indulge in a slice of cake. And that's okay.
It's about progress, not perfection. Lieberman's own journey is a testament to that. He didn't transform into a marathon running machine overnight. It took time, experimentation, and a willingness to listen to his body.
And he still takes the elevator sometimes. It's reassuring to know that even the experts have those days.
It's all about finding that sustainable balance, that sweet spot where movement feels less like an obligation and more like a celebration of what our bodies can do.
Just like those Tarahumara runners. They're not chasing some arbitrary fitness goal. They're simply moving in ways that feel, natural and joyful.
It's about reclaiming that innate joy in movement, that sense of wonder and capability that we all possess.
So no more beating ourselves up for, missing a workout or indulging in a treat.
It's time to ditch the guilt and embrace the power of, small, consistent actions.
Just like those hunter-gatherers who walked and ran as part of their daily lives, we too can make movement a natural, enjoyable part of our modern existence.
Start by finding one small way to incorporate more movement into your day today. Maybe it's, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, going for a walk during your lunch break, or even just dancing around your kitchen while you make dinner.
Whatever it is, make it fun. Make it sustainable. And most importantly, make it your own.
Because when we find joy in movement, we unlock a powerful source of health, happiness, and vitality.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. Lieberman's insights really challenge us to rethink our relationship with exercise,
Yeah.
to ditch the guilt and embrace the joy of movement.
It's about time we stop fighting our biology and start, working with it to create a lifestyle that supports our evolutionary heritage.
So to our amazing listener, we leave you with this question. What's one small step you can take today to rediscover the joy of movement in your own life?
Until next time, keep exploring, keep moving, and keep diving deep.